Hi there, I'm Renos Vakis, lead economist at the World Bank, and your host for Accelerating Development Ideas for Impact. This is not your typical podcast. It's an AI powered conversation brought to you by the World Bank Institute for Economic Development, where we unpack the latest research with one goal in mind turning big ideas into real world impact. Let's get started.
Thank you for the introduction, Renos. So, when we first hear that a new Global report is out, especially one this comprehensive, you sort of hold your breath for that big headline number. And this one, titled "Foreign Direct Investment in Retreat: Policies to Turn the Tide," seems on the surface pretty alarming.
It does. The central finding is that this flow of capital into emerging and developing economies, it's not just slowing down, it's in a steady retreat. What does that look like in real numbers?
The trend is unmistakable. In the typical developing economy, FDI as a share of its GDP peaked back in 2008 at nearly 5%. Today, that number has been more than cut in half, settling at just over 2% in 2023.
Less than half. And is this just a problem in a few places or is it widespread?
It's incredibly broad based. About 60% of all developing economies saw their FDI to GDP ratios fall. And in nominal terms, the $435 billion they received in 2023 was the lowest level we've seen since 2005. It's a quiet crisis that jeopardizes everything from job creation to funding the green transition.
And that brings us to the core question for policymakers. We know FDI is important, but how much does it actually move the needle on economic growth? Is all FDI created equal?
That's the critical question, and the report has a very nuanced answer. The data shows that, on average, a 10% increase in FDI inflows is associated with a 0.3% boost to GDP after 3 years.
Okay, so there's a clear positive link, but you said the answer was nuanced.
Exactly, because that's just the average. The report's empirical work shows that the effect can be much, much stronger, up to a 0.8% increase in GDP in countries that have what the report calls conducive structural conditions.
And what are those conditions? What does the country need to have in place to get that bigger bang for its buck?
It really comes down to four key areas: greater trade openness, stronger institutions, better rule of law, less corruption, better human capital development, and a smaller informal economy.
So the takeaway for a policymaker isn't just get more FDI, it's fix your house first to make the FDI you do get count for more.
That's it exactly. It shifts the focus from just external promotion to the hard work of internal reform. Attracting capital is only half the battle. Having the capacity to absorb it effectively is what truly drives development.
And while this is happening, the very nature of the investment itself is changing, right? The report talks about a major sectoral shift.
A huge one. Since the early 2000s, we've seen a massive pivot. The share of FDI going into manufacturing has fallen from about 45% down to less than 30%, and all of that has shifted into services.
So from factories to finance and tech?
Right. The share of services in FDI inflows has jumped from 45% to nearly 65%. And this servitization has real implications. It often requires a higher skilled workforce, which means that for countries to benefit, their education and training policies have to keep pace.
Which all leads to the final big question. Why is this happening now? What's driving this global FDI retreat?
Well, the simple answer is that the global environment has fundamentally changed. The era of rapid integration that lifted so many boats has stalled, and we're now in an era of growing friction.
And the report has data to back that up.
Overwhelmingly, take investment treaties. These agreements are the bedrock of cross border investment. The analysis shows that having a treaty in place tends to boost FDI flows between signatory states by more than 40%.
40%. That's a massive effect.
It is. And here's the problem: the world has stopped making them. In the 2000s, countries signed about 870 new investment treaties. But in the entire period from 2010 to 2024, that number collapsed to just 380. The primary tool for encouraging FDI is being dismantled.
So the very system that gave investors confidence is weakening. And at the same time, I assume geopolitical tensions are adding a new layer of risk.
A measurable one. The analysis finds that FDI flows between countries with significant diplomatic disagreement are about one-eighth lower than the median. So you have this double jeopardy scenario. The old tools that helped attract investment are disappearing just as new political barriers are rising.
So if you're a policymaker in a developing country today, the global tailwinds that once pushed investment your way have turned into headwinds.
That's the perfect way to put it. The path forward requires a much more deliberate and proactive strategy. It's about attracting investment by strengthening those domestic fundamentals we talked about, amplifying the benefits through extensive structural reforms, and working together globally to push back against this fragmentation. The era of passive benefits is over.
A sobering but clear message. We have to turn the tide ourselves. Over to you, Ranos.
Thank you for joining us. You can find the full report on our website. Just follow the link in the description. Be sure to subscribe to be the first to know about upcoming episodes. And before you go, how do you plan to put what you learn into practice? And what topics you'd like us to explore next? We'd love to know. Until then, goodbye.